that down, let's move on to this, shall we? Well, Superman has come out. It's in theaters this weekend. Everybody had a chance to see it. And the box office totals are now in. And they're right where I said they would be. I said it would come in around 120 million, somewhere between 110, 130. And as of right now, the updated number, although this article in Variety is saying Superman soars to $122 million, third biggest opening of the weekend. They've adjusted that now. The actual numbers come in as 125. $125 million. Now, I thought that we would take a few moments here and put that number into some perspective about how that measures up to all other films that have come out the last few years. How does it compare to James Gunn's Personal List? How does it compare to other comic book fare we've had the last couple of years? So let's take a look at this. So with Superman, now I've got 122. They have just updated the number to 125, but we're going to use the number 122 for now. In James Gunn's career, it now makes it the second biggest opening of his career. Guardians of the Galaxy 2, of course, the follow-up to his massively successful Guardians of the Galaxy, is still the biggest one at 146. Superman at 122. Guardians of the Galaxy 3 at 118. Guardians of the Galaxy made 94 million opening weekend, and then his Suicide Squad, which opened during COVID and when Warner Brothers put it on streaming the same day it was in theaters, and yet it still managed to make $26.2 million at the box office. Well, how does it compare to all films that have come out in the last couple of years? Well, if we look at the list of all the opening weekends from all films since the end of 2023, Superman is the sixth biggest opening weekend since the end of 2023. Deadpool and Wolverine is the biggest at $211 million. Minecraft is second at 162.7. Inside Out 2 is third at 154.2 million. Lilo and Stitch, which by the way is going to cross the $1 billion mark either today or tomorrow to become the first $1 billion film of the year. So congratulations to Lilo and Stitch for that. But Lilo and Stitch, the fourth biggest since the end of 2023 at $146 million. Moana 2 comes in the number 5 spot at $139.7 million. And then Superman, the sixth biggest opening weekend since the end of 2023 at 122. Then you had Wicked, which I had at 12.5. That should say 120.5. And then Beetlejuice 2 coming in there at the end at $111 million. All right. Well, let's get more specific. How does this opening of Superman compare to other films in the genre? And let's go back another year. How does this Superman film compare to all comic book movies opening weekends since the end of 2022? Well, it does pretty well. If you look at the biggest comic book opening since the end of 22, Superman is second. The only comic book film since the end of 2022 that has had a bigger opening weekend than Superman is Deadpool and Wolverine, which again, at $211 million. So that at 125 million, which is the new number, that beats out all the other comic book movies that come out since 2022. Across the Spider-Verse opened to 120. Guardians of the Galaxy 3 opened to 118. Ant-Man 3 opened to 106. Captain America 4 opened to 88.8. Thunderbolts opened to 76. The Flash opened to 55. Venom 3 opened to 51. The Marvels opened to 46. The Joker opened to 42. Then we had some other films, Craven, Madam Web, things like that, or Marvels didn't even, or Shazam didn't even register. So we don't even have those on the list here. But if you look at the genre itself, since the end of 2020, it's the second biggest. Now look, I have said over a year that this Superman movie had too much baggage. I've warned everybody all year. Said don't expect sky high, shattering all box office records, because I've told people for a year over and over and over again, this is a movie that is coming along with a lot of baggage. It is yet another iteration of Superman, because we've had like 5 of them in the last handful of years. It is the first of a brand new cinematic universe. trying to rise out of the ashes of the absolutely decimated and ruination of the DCEU that the entire movie-going audience had abandoned and stopped going to. Like their last 5 movies they released, it opened to like 100 and something million, 200 million, 200 million. One, I think, opened to over 400 million, or had a grand total box office 400 million. And I kept telling everybody, Superman's going to do well. But the job of this Superman movie is not to break box office records. The job of this, because it can't, the job of this movie is to rehabilitate the image of DC and get people back on board with Superman and DC as a whole. That is mission accomplished. They've done that. I mean, it's, at the last I checked, it's still holding a 93% audience rating, still holding an 82% critical rating, like some of the best numbers DC's had in forever. So it's done that. And I got to say, even though last week or 2 weeks ago, I was saying it's going to come in around the 120 million mark, that's still a lot more than I thought it would have done 6 months ago. Like if you had gone back in time 6 months to John Campea, I would have told you Superman and the people at Warner Brothers should be popping bottles if they can hit the $100 million mark. But, obviously we had to adjust those numbers up. I never thought, like, even when we were talking about the projections coming from Box Office Pro saying 130, 160, I'm like, these are great numbers. What did I say in the show? I said, I don't see it doing that. I mean, it's great if it does, but I don't see it doing that. But still, Rob, I think when you step back and you look at the result it had in context, considering fewer people are going to the movies today, again, like the 6th biggest opening of any film since the end of 2023, the only comic book movie since the end of 2022 that had a bigger opening weekend than this was Deadpool and Wolverine, which is a part of an already existing beloved franchise. It beat out Guardians 3, which is the third part of a beloved franchise. It beat out Ant-Man 3. It beat out other Marvel films like
Spider-Man No Way Home, you said.
No Way Home is, that's before 2023, isn't it? Isn't that 2022?
Oh, it might have been. I thought it was on your list.
No, I have Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse
That's
on the list, which made 120. But it beat out other big Marvel films, Captain America 4, Thunderbolts. Anyway, I have been telling people for all year, if this thing can make over $100 million, that's insanely good, considering all the baggage that comes along with it. And I didn't even expect it. So I think when you look at it in context, this is a pretty, for another rendition of Superman, of an entire brand that the entire box office, the entire movie-going audience had abandoned and hated, whose reputation was in the gutter, for this thing to come out and be the second biggest since 2022 in the entire genre, I think is pretty damn good. But anyway, Rob, you saw the numbers. You saw the movie a couple of times. What do you think about its box office result of 125 million? And what kind of legs do you have? Because here's the thing. One of the big struggles it's going to have is internationally. Superman is not as big of an icon internationally. It's very recognizable, but not as popular internationally as it is here. So anyway, what do you think about these results?
Well, first of all, I'd said 130, so it's right. I think you said
right
120 or something. We were right in the middle. I do think that I think slow and steady wins the race here. I think that this coming week and next weekend are going to be really telling in terms of where we're going to be at box office wise, not just the international box office, which is going to be slower for this character, but midweek box office, because is the family audience going to continue going? School's out, and I think this has a lot of runway till we have Fantastic Four, and I think it can do some really big business during the week that might surprise people. There's a lot of naysayers already on the internet comparing and contrasting this opening to Zack Snyder's Superman, which was a different time. And then back then it was doing the same thing. You had Christopher Nolan teaming up with David Goyer again, teaming up with Zack Snyder to do this Superman movie. And adjusted for inflation, it was a different time. So it's going to be interesting to see how the Superman movie performs over the next month. Because if the family audience keeps going, and I suspect they will, because kids seem to really love this movie, despite the fact that there's some pretty rough things in it. If the family audience keeps going, you'd be surprised, because that's not just one person going. That's families of 4 going to see this movie. And I saw the delight on kids' faces in the theater that I was in myself when I saw it for the second time. So I think this movie could have quite the hold, and not necessarily dip its second weekend. I think it's going to have quite a hold in weekend 2, and I think during the week it's going to make a lot of money too. So I think they're off to a really good start.
Yeah, I think there's going to be a lot of repeat viewing for this. I mean, it's again 93% critic score or a 93% audience score, A- cinema score. By the way, the cinema score came out with an A-,
Yeah.
which beats out a lot of these other films. An 82% critic rating. I think it's going to have a lot of repeat business. The one thing going for it right now is that what do we have opening this weekend? Smurfs. And what else? Like, what's the other big movie opening this? Or big, but there's another wide
Does
release.
Eddington open this weekend? I don't know if it does or not.
I'm not sure. I wouldn't be worried about Eddington.
I know you
No,
did
no.
last summer.
That's right.
Smurfs.
That's right. I know what you did last summer, and all due respect to Freddie Prinze Jr., who I adore. I adore Freddie, but no one's going to go see I Know What You Did Last Summer. That's not going to be the next Final Destination, I don't think. So I think it's going to have pretty good legs for the second weekend. Again, a hell of a lot of people went to go see the first weekend, so it might have a little bit larger than normal second weekend drop off, but I think it's going to be pretty good. Again, the big problem for its overall worldwide box office is going to be the international market.
Yeah.
So we'll see how that does. Anyway, guys, question is for you. What do you think about this? I mean, in terms of its genre, the only movie since 2022 that's done better of an opening weekend than Superman, none of the other Marvel films, just Deadpool and Wolverine. That's it. Anyway, what do you think about its overall performance? How good of a second weekend do you think it's have? Do you think, like I do, that it's going to struggle a little bit overseas? Whatever you guys think, jump down to the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. Hey guys, thanks so much for watching this video. Make sure you like the video, leave a comment, and subscribe to our channel. And don't forget, we have a daily podcast called the John Campea Show podcast, available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your favorite podcasting app of choice. Go and subscribe to it today so it'll be there when you need it.